Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got an off-the-wall, insane, crazy deck for you. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. Let's jump into it. So, first up, we've got Elena, Kessig Trapper, as one of our two commanders, because of course, Elena is a partner commander. But this is not your normal partner commander Elena deck. No, not at all. A 4/3 human scout with first strike for 5 mana in red. Tap, add an amount of red equal to the greatest power among creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn. So this is a mana dork that is dependent. It is dependent on power, not its own power, not even on the power of another creature that you have in play, but specifically another creature that you control that enters the battlefield this turn. So yeah, if that creature enters the battlefield this turn, then you can get the power. And essentially, this is a commander that can tap for an absurd amount of mana. And because of that, we've got a couple of ways that we can really take advantage of that and do some really crazy things with it. And one especially crazy thing that I am so excited to get to. But first, we need to talk about the other partner, and you might be like, okay, yeah, Elena, Elena, that's it. And actually, I want to admit something kind of embarrassing right here. I forgot that this isn't like partner with. No, this is like, hey, any kind of a partner. So at first I was building the deck with Elena, and then I was like, wait, there's a better partner for this. And actually, you might not have expected it, but Dargo the Shipwrecker is that partner. Now, Dargo is also in red, which means that you typically don't see partners when they're the exact same color because you're not adding additional colors. You are staying within the color identity. You're not getting any additional benefits from, well, adding the exact same color, except for the fact that you are getting a commander that has 7 power. Yeah, the most power out of any of the partners, and on a commander that can really easily be cast. A 7/5 giant pirate for 7 mana in red. As additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of artifacts and/or creatures. The spell costs 2 less cast for each permanent sacrifice this way, 2 less cast for each other artifact creature sacrifice this turn. Trample. So this is a, well, commander that can be cast for as little as just 1 mana by sacrificing 3 things. And again, you can sacrifice artifacts, which of course includes, well, I mean, like, you know, mana rocks, treasures, and other kinds of creatures as well you can sacrifice too. So you can cast this for as little as a single mana, which then basically supercharges Elena to be able to tap for 7 mana in that turn. Potentially again and again and again. And we've got a lot of ways to take advantage of that. And we've got one specific card that we want to get to on an explosive turn. Speaking of explosive, though, this price is explosively budget. That's not a phrase. Anyways, $12.47 for this entire deck, not including shipping or basics, but still incredibly budget friendly. You already have those basics. Yeah, it's a very, very, very interesting deck. Let's jump into the tactics and talk about what exactly we want to do with all this power and all this mana. And first up, we're going to be talking about the golden pig of this deck, which is Crackling Spellslinger. And I've actually got to thank Alec for this and another big include in the deck because definitely inspired by one of Alec's decks. Crackling Spellslinger is a 2/2 human wizard with flash that costs 5 mana in red. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has Storm. And as a reminder, for those of you that don't know what Storm is, when you cast that spell, copied for each spell cast before it this turn, you may choose targets for the copies. So Storm is an incredibly broken mechanic. Like, literally they made it, they're like, oh, this is going to be fine. Oh my gosh, what happened? What are these players doing with this? Yeah, it was a lot more powerful than they thought it was going to be, and that's why when it comes to evaluating mechanics and just how powerful they are, it's called the Storm Scale for a reason. So, being able to give literally any of our instants and sorceries, essentially, Storm is a very, very crazy thing to do. So, with this commander deck, our goal is, well, get our Mana Dork commander out. Get our other commander out that can make our Mana Dork commander tap for a ton. Tap our commander for a ton, maybe do it again, maybe again, and again, and again, and again, and again. all the while casting spells that help us do so. We'll get to those spells here in a little bit. And then casting this, and then casting a massive, amazing spell that definitely should not have Storm. Wizards would never have put Storm on that card, and yet we give it Storm. We let it just grow into a beautiful masterpiece of our opponent's destruction. Let's jump into the rest of the tactics and talk about exactly how we're going to pull all of this off, though. Now, how we're going to be doing that is with threatened effects like, okay, well, I'm not talking about threatened first because Wrangle's actually converted mana cost-wise the lowest that we're utilizing. That being said, threatened effects are basically, hey, I gain control of a creature, I untap it, and it gains haste. Typically, and we can utilize these in this way, is we could steal our opponent's creatures. But with this deck, most of the time, we're going to be like, it's an untap spell for my commander. Because, again, our commander can tap for, again, if we get our other commander in play, 7 mana. So, when we say tap for 7, cast Wrangle, gain control of target creature, power 4 or less until end of turn, untap that creature, can haste until end of turn. Again, our commander does have power 4 or less. So, Elena, I should say. We get to untap it then for 2 mana, tap it again. So, instead of just gaining, 5 mana off of casting the spell, we're gaining an extra 7. So, it is 12 mana gain total for tapping our commander, untapping, tapping again. So, we are netting 5 mana on this spell in total. So, we have a lot of other threat effects, typically which are 3 mana, like Active Treason. This is basically just threaten, okay? Gain control of a creature, untap it, it gains haste. The thing is, obviously, once we get to a certain point where we cast all these spells, and we've got a lot of threat effects, we're going to get through these. At a certain point, sure, you can actually kind of make your own insurrection where you're like, okay, I cast my Crackling Spellslinger, I cast another threat effect, and all of a sudden, I am copying that an absurd amount of times. I mean, you also could just, use that to untap your commander again for an absurd amount of mana, or you could, insurrection your opponent's boards, too. So, and there's a lot of spicy things you can do. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because, again, basically, they all do threaten, which is gain control of a creature, untap, gains haste. Cool? Here we go. Next up, we got Bloody Betrayal. Also get a blood token on top of the threaten. Furnace Rains. Also get the creature gets. When this creature deals combat to a player or battle, you make a treasure token. Then there's Goat Nap. If our opponents have goats, +3/+0 to them that we steal. But we don't have any goats or changelings. Next up, Harness by Force. We can actually cast this and strive it for each target beyond the first. And yeah, we can actually utilize this to steal a lot of creatures because we've got a lot of mana, so keep that in mind. Next up, Hijack. Yeah, artifact or creature, but mostly a creature. Mark of Mutiny, get an extra counter on the creature. Pax Betrayal, if it's a werewolf or wolf, we scry 2. Most of the time, that's not going to matter. Price of Loyalty, if we spend a treasure to cast this spell, +2/+0. Probably not going to happen. Shackles of Treachery, destroying equipment, no one cares. Threaten, the original Threaten. Traitorous Blood, basically just Threaten. Twisted Fealty, create a Wicked Roll token attached to one target creature. That actually can be a win condition for us if we have enough storm count because, well, we can just keep getting that counter on one of our creatures, and then we remove the counter, and then it drains opponents, so keep that in mind. Unwilling Recruit, threaten plus a pump effect potentially. Involuntary Employment, get a treasure token on top of the threaten. That can be quite nice to storm with because you get a bunch of treasure tokens as well. Malevolent Whispers, keep in mind this one's at 4 mana now. That being said, it does have madness. We've got a lot of wheel type effects, so we can actually wheel and actually threaten as well on top of that, plus a +2/+0. Traitorous Greed, you get an extra 2 mana of any one color, so you get mana back essentially with this. And then finally, Word of Seizing. This can be a game-ending effect for us. This has split second, and also on top of that, untap target permanent and gain control of it until end of turn. It gains haste until end of turn. Again, any permanent, not just creatures. So keep in mind, you can steal all your opponent's things at a certain point and do some crazy things with them. Next up, let's go to tactic number 3. Sweet Wheels, dude. Yeah, that's that name. Yeah, well, we're going to stick with that, right? Sweet Wheels. Okay, we're just going to stick with that. Okay, Collective Defiance. This escalate, choose 1 or more. Target player discards all the cards in their hand, then draws that many cards. 4 damage target creature, 3 damage target opponent or planeswalker. Keep in mind, you can escalate this and get all of them essentially when you're copying this. With a storm effect, you would get all of those effects, so you can do some pretty crazy things if you, storm this spell. So, yeah, I mean, technically, you could probably mill someone out. You could maybe damage them out, essentially. You could take out all the creatures on board, whatever you need to do. Or most of the time, just utilize it on yourself to wheel down to try to get to those key cards, like the Crackling Spellslinger. Next up, Into the Fire. Choose 1, 2 damage each creature, planeswalker in battle, Or, more likely, put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many +1. Shadow Perception, a way to wheel and then wheel again. Discard your hand, draw that many, flash it back to do so again. Change of Fortune, an absurdly amazing card in this deck. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. My goodness, this is a way to just churn through so much of your deck. Because again, if you wheel, maybe wheel again, and then cast this, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'll draw like 20 cards or so. Absolutely crazy. Decaying Time Loop. Discard the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. You can also retrace it to recast from your graveyard, essentially by discarding a land. So yeah, a way to keep drawing more and more and more cards. Fateful Showdown, draw plus damage. Damage to card, creature, or player, go number of cards in your hand. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. I mean, I guess I should say if you're storming off and like you give one of these storm, be careful that you don't like mill yourself out. That being said, yeah, it could be a decent finisher potentially in the right situation. Into the Night becomes Night. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. The fact that it's Night probably doesn't matter at all. The fact that you are wheeling does. Then we've got Pat the Pyromancer. Something else doesn't matter. Will the Planeswalkers unless you're playing Plane Shift. Discard all Plane Chase, I should say. Discard all the cards in your hand. Add a red for each card discard this way. Then draw that many cards +1. Can be a great way to just get some extra burst of mana and dig down into your deck. Next up, tactic number 3, keep on rolling. That's right, we got even more wheels. These are a bit more, I'm not going to say dependent, but more dependent than just casting a spell and getting a wheel. Magus of the Wheel, pay 1 a red, tap, sacrifice it. Each player discards their hand and then draws 7 cards. Neheb Dread Horde Champion, we trample over a creature. Lovely, do so. When it deals counter to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw that many cards and add that much red until end of turn. You don't lose that mana of steps phase then. So basically, wheel plus mana generation. What's not to love about that? Speaking of mana, Ruin Grinder. Well, I guess early mana. We can mountain cycle it away if we need to and go get a mountain so we hit our land drops. There you go, mana. 7/4 with Menace. When it dies, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. Typically, you're not going to worry about like needing another creature that's a good amount of power other than our commander, Dargo. But yeah, if you need this one for a reason to have 7 power in play at the turn that you want to go off, do so. Or just, yeah, get in play, hope it dies at some point and wheel. Next up, Runehorn Hellkite. This one is a weird one. 5/5 flying dragon for 6 mana that does literally nothing when it's in play, except for being a 5/5 dragon with flying. By paying 6 mana in total, exile from your graveyard though, and everyone wheels, discards their hand, draws 7. So yeah, this is actually one that we can just discard into our graveyard with another wheel type effect or a looting effect, and then actually utilize it when we need to. Then there's Dragon Mage, a great repeatable wheel effect. 5/5 flyer, deals combination to a player. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Quite a nice effect. And then we've got Knoll Spine Dragon. When it comes into play, you may discard your hand, draw a card to equal the damage dealt to target opponent this turn. That can be a ton. Again, we've got a lot of ways to deal a lot of damage, so we've got a lot of ways to say, you know what? Let's get this dragon into play. Again, 7 power if you need it. There you go. But also, you know what? We're going to discard our hand, draw an absurd amount of cards, and get this crazy train going. Now, you might think we're done with drawing cards, but, well, we kind of are, but we kind of aren't. Some of these are impulse draw, which is kind of like draw, but not really. Anyways, dig deep. Tactic number 5. Commune with Lava, instant for X red red. Yeah, place to put all that giant, juicy mana. And to exile the top X card your library until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Keep in mind, impulse draw can be amazing when it comes to working with wheels because we exile those cards. They're impulse drawn. They're just sitting up there in exile, and we can utilize them still. And then if we wheel, we're not discarding those. We still have access to those, and we're discarding our hand, replacing that essentially. So yeah, we have like extra draw essentially with this. Seize the Spoils. Just cross-cast the spell, discard a card, draw 2, create treasure token. Again, another pretty good card to storm off with if you really want to, just getting a lot of treasures and digging down into your deck. Ignite the Future. Exile the top of your cards, your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. As well as cast from a graveyard. You may play this without paying mana costs of those spells. Mana is not going to be an issue with this deck. So again, just being able to cast this, maybe even recast it all in the same turn. We can do a lot of crazy things with that. Speaking of recast things, Mizzix's Mastery. Oh my goodness. Exile target card that's in sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile Mizzix's Mastery. You overload this essentially, and you are casting every single in sorcery out of your graveyard, which again, we've already talked about quite a few, but you're basically like, okay, threaten effects, draw effects, wheel effects, whatever they are. Overload this, do all of that again. Yeah, your storm count is going to be absurd. And then you're going to do some really crazy things with Crackling Spell Slinger. Next up, Pirate's Pillage. Yet another great card to potentially even storm off to if you really want to. You got a lot of great options. Discard 1 card, draw 2, make 2 treasure tokens. Inspired Tinkering. Impulse draw 3, make 3 treasure tokens. Yeah, the amount of mana that you can make in this deck is crazy. Pyretic Charge, discard your hand, draw 4 cards. For each card, discard this way. Creature control, get +1/+0 until end of turn. You can also plot this, so that can be a great card to just sit it off to the side earlier on, and then cast it for free later, essentially, getting this effect, and yeah, doing some crazy things with it. This can also be a finisher for you, potentially, if you want to pump your army to oblivion. Volcanic Vision can also be a finisher for you as well. Bring back an instant source card from your graveyard to your hand, basically regrowth type effect. Then it's going to deal damage equal that card's mana value to each creature opponents control, exile it. So this can be a great, again, kind of like Mizzix's Mastery, like bring back a lot of things, recast them. Again, mana is not going to be an issue with your threat effects, and then be able to just, oh yeah, I deal out a bunch of damage to my opponent's faces too. So yeah, storming off of this can just be absolutely crazy. Soulfire Eruption, another one. Choose any number of target creatures, planeswalkers, and or players. For each of them, exile the top card of your library. Then it's going to deal damage equal that card's converted mana cost to that permanent or player. You may play the exile cards until the end of your next turn. Impulse draw a ton, again, based on all the creatures in play, essentially. I mean, maybe don't include your own, but maybe, who cares? But being able to just hit your opponents in the faces with this as well. Impulse draw a ton. And also, yeah, if you storm with this, that's probably gonna be game. Apex of Power, a crazy cool card as well in this deck. Sorcery for 10 mana in total. Exile the top 7 cards of your library. Till end of your turn, you may cast spells from among them. If this spell is cast from your hand, add 10 mana of any one color. Yeah, basically a bunch of free mana for you. I mean, not free technically. You are kind of getting the mana back that you put into this, but also your impulse drawing a lot. And also if you storm with this, yeah, you can get a lot of value out of it. Next up, tactic number 6, seeing double now. Storming with Crackling Spellslinger is not the only way that we can maybe duplicate some effects that we really want to. Some big, powerful cards, or even just like a threaten effect. Increasing Vengeance, instant for 2 mana, copy it into a sorcery spell, but you can flash it back, and if you do, copy it twice instead. So by doing so, yeah, you're going to be able to do some crazy things with it. Again, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I threat my commander. Oh, before that, let's copy that. Maybe copy it a second time. All of a sudden, you get so much mana out of that one interaction and that one spell. This can also be like a counterspell in a way by copying an opponent's counterspell too, so keep that in mind. Lots of crazy things can be done with it. Or yeah, just again, the high-end big spells, copy those two for big effects. Display of Power. This spell can't be copied. Yeah, Wizards, it definitely should not be allowed to be copied because of the craziness that it can consume. Copy any number of target instant sorcery spells, choose new targets to the copy. So basically, like everything on the stack, let's just copy all those things. Some crazy things can happen with this kind of a build. Next up, Repeated Reverberation. When you cast your next instant sorcery spell, activate loyalty ability this turn. No, we don't care about that. You copy that spell ability twice, targets the copies. Again, being able to double up something can be absolutely massive. I mean, even if you want to, for whatever reason, like storm off, cast your Crackling Spellslinger, cast this, that copies, and then you cast like one other spell, you probably win the game. Though you might have just already stormed with that one. But yeah, like, you know, storming this can be quite crazy as well. Double Vision. Whenever you're casting your first in-source spell each turn, copy that spell, triggers the copies. Just nice additional value throughout the game for you. Again, just consider like one threat and effect, 3 mana threat and effect. You're gaining 4 mana on it typically, because again, you tap your commander for 7, you pay 3, you untap it, you tap it again, you're gaining 4 extra mana with that. That being said, if you copy that, just a free copy of it, that is an extra 7 mana on top of that, so keep that in mind. Also, gotta thank Alec for this one. Radiant Performer. If you haven't seen Alec's deck around this, it is disgustingly amazing. 2/2 Human Wizard for 5 mana. Flash enters the battlefield. If you cast it from your hand, choose target spell or ability that targets only a single permanent or player. Copy that spell or ability for each other permanent or player that spell or ability could target. Each copy targets a different one of those permanents and players. Basically, turn everything into an everything spell. Again, any kind of a threaten effect that can target a creature is now just, oh, it targets all the creatures. Insurrection. Again, Word of Seizing, which can target a permanent, is now, oh, targets every single thing. Any kind of a damage spell, it's like, oh, deal 1 damage to that or whatever it is. Okay, cool. That targets every single thing again. The amount of value you can get out of this is absolutely absurd. And like Crackling Spellslinger, it can just be an absolutely amazing card in this deck that can just explode the game. But now as we go to tactic number 7, bring it back. And bring it back we shall with Bag of Holding. Artifact for 1. Whenever you discard a card, exile from your graveyard, you can pay 2 and tap to loot, essentially. Pay 4 and tap to sacrifice this and bring back every single card exile with this back to its owner's hand. So, hey, you know how you were like casting all the spells, storming off, and then, oh, okay, well, yeah, casting some wheels, discarding some spells, putting them in the graveyard. Now you can get those back. You can get those cards that you actually discarded with those wheels back, and all of a sudden, oh, extra value to be had. Speaking of which, Containment Construct and Artifact Construct for 2. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile a card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. So again, with a wheel effect, you're not losing out on anything that you are discarding now, as long as you get the mana to utilize it still. Being able to be like, oh, okay, I discard those cards, I draw 7, cool, good for me. I can still utilize those cards again that I discarded. So with that, plus Impulse Draw, plus all these things, you again can have such explosive, giant, massive, incredibly crazy turns. Moving on, though, to tactic number 8, start it up. And start up we shall with Everflowing Chalice. Very flexible mana rock. Pay 2 taps for 1, pay 4 taps for 2. Arcane Signet, taps for red. Then we got Fire Diamond, enters the battlefield, taps for a red. Fractured Power Stone, it taps for a colorless. Again, you're in a mono-color deck. You are fine. You know, you can tap for a colorless with your cards. Mind Stone, and our commander's going to be tapping for all the red we need. Mind Stone taps for a colorless, pay 1 tap, sacrifice, draw a card. Prismatic Lens, if you have to filter your mana, you can. If not, it taps for a colorless. Iron Crag, if you want to pump your commander, sure, it can become an equipment, but most of the time, mana rock. There you go. Spellbinding Soprano, another great 2-mana spell for this deck. Whenever attacks, in-source spells you cast this turn cost 1 to cast. That can go absolutely crazy with this deck. Again, being able to just say, oh, okay, cool, I did that. Oh, my spells cost 1 less. All your threaten effects cost like now 2 essentially for the most part. Absolutely crazy. Or if you encore this out of your graveyard, yes, please. And again, you can like wheel to get this in your graveyard to encore, and then all your in-sorceries cost, what, 3 less to cast on that turn? Absolutely craziness to be had. Speaking of craziness, Cursed Mirror. Taps for a red, or as it enters the battlefield, you may have become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until that turn except as haste. Here's the thing. Your opponent might have an even bigger creature than you do. Even bigger than Dargo. I know it's heresy to say something's bigger than Dargo, right? But still, something might be more gigantic. Maybe a 10-power Primeval Titan or whatever that one is, essentially. There's a lot of big things, okay? So essentially, oh, okay, cool. I have my little 3-mana mirror become a copy of that. Now my commander taps for even more. Thank you so much, opponent. I appreciate that. Or it's just a mana rock for you as well. Or you can get, you know, an ETB or something for another creature too. Warden Power Stone, also at 3, though. ETB is tapped. Tap for 2. Sunscreen Crystal also taps for 2. Pay 2 and tap and sacrifice. Get rid of graveyards that you don't like. Draw a card. Megaton's Fate. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Short target artifact, create 4 treasure tokens. Think about just, you know, radiating that with Radiant Performer. All artifacts go away. By the way, I get 4 treasure tokens for every single one of those. Or you can like storm with this too. Or hey, 8 damage chart each creature. Each player gets 4 rad counters. This is just wipe the board and then some. Again, if you storm off Crackling Spellslinger, this storm count, whatever, like 10 plus, all the creatures are gone. Everyone gets 4 times whatever against 10 rad counters. So that's 40 rad counters. Your opponents are going to be gone with all those rad counters. So absolutely fun times for you. But now as this episode is coming to a close, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. If you are interested in this deck, the deck list link is in the description below. Again, according to Moxfield, just $12.47 for this crazy off-the-wall, budget insane deck that gives things Storm that definitely should not have Storm. So yeah, if you are interested in it, make sure you pick it up. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.